Team USA Women's Rugby, they are bronze medalists. Spoiler alert. Let's just come right out and say it before we talk about the individual games. We talked about this coming into the Olympics, that they had never medaled, neither the men nor women, since Rugby Sevens became an Olympic sport in 2016. And the U.S. started today with what we knew was going to be a very difficult quarterfinal against New Zealand, but knowing that even if they lost that game, they would have a chance to go for a bronze medal later. And they did it, and they won in just about the most dramatic fashion you can. I had said the other day that my Croatia men's handball team might have the biggest, most exciting win, but that has been surpassed on my list. Unbelievable game. I'm guessing you caught this one live. It feels like anyone who was plugged in knew this was happening and watched it. But what was your reaction?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, I was impressed with the effort against New Zealand, given how dominant New Zealand had been in other games. I was glad to see them at least get on the board there. And so I thought I had decent hopes for the bronze medal match when it did occur. And yeah, that finish, I was like, I'm a pretty stoic sports fan. I know, like, certainly compared to a lot of my friends. But that was one of those ones where what was it, Alex Cedric, she gets that breakaway at the end as time is expiring, and I'm yelling, go, 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 and clapping. And yeah, it was amazing. One of my favorite moments of these games so far, like by a wide margin.
Yeah, so Spiff, they call her.
They call her Spiff, yeah.
That's the nickname that I saw. So I'm with you. Early in the day, they took a lead early against New Zealand, and we had talked about how their point differential in New Zealand was just blowing everybody out by like 40 points. And the U.S. gave them their toughest game easily. The U.S. scored more points than anyone else had, and then also held them to fewer than anyone else had. And they played a good game. And so then coming into the Australia game, and the U.S. was actually down 7-0. And then Alev Kelter tied it up. And there was a very close play that got reviewed right before halftime. And then they were sort of hanging in and down by 5. And I think there are a lot of people who didn't necessarily know the rugby rules and probably know them better now. But just to recap for anyone who didn't see it, it's not a sport where the clock hits 0 and the game is over, the buzzer rings. It's basically when the clock hits 0, you get to finish that possession until you turn it over. And by possession, it's not like football where you've got first down, second down, third down. It's like you have possession of the ball and they've got to, take the ball away. So the U.S. has the ball and the clock is at 0 and they're down by 5 points and they make a couple of passes. And then it's just like a broken tackle and just daylight, like just running like straight down the field, the equivalent of like a 99-yard touchdown, and just like run it straight into the tunnel. It was unreal. Like I saw people comparing it to other plays and comparing it to like the lateral play that the Dolphins had against the Patriots on the last play of the game, 4 or 5 years ago. I saw it compared to the Stephon Diggs Hail Mary, the Minneapolis Miracle for the Vikings, the Auburn kick 6. It was like that dramatic of a play on the very last play. And then they score the try, which ties it, and then you have to kick the conversion, and they made the conversion, and that was it. And you just saw that instant reaction where the U.S. team is exploding and going nuts, and the Australia players were crying on the field. Instantly, they thought they had a medal, and then just as quickly they lose it. Just unbelievable. The games are only 14 minutes long, and there are just the emotional swings can happen like that on one play, and that was just. I mean, that'll be tough, honestly, for the entire Olympics. It'll be tough for anything to surpass that for me. For a medal at the very end, a team that I've been invested in and following, and just a totally unreal ending.
Yeah, that was the only play that could have won that game, really. Like, they were pinned so far back, and it was going to be extremely unlikely for them to, like you said, it's the last possession of the game. It'd be extremely unlikely for them to mount this, like, sustained possession marching down the field, like Iowa football style. They needed that big explosive play, and they got it with Cedric there. The thing that struck me was Australia made a lot of mistakes in this game. U.S. played great, obviously, really good game. Australia made a lot of mistakes. They had a try that they could have had, but a pass went off a player's fingertips and went out of bounds. And then that last play, that was early in the first half, and then the second half, and then that last play, could have brought down Cedric, but it just seemed like they just didn't put in there were two Australian opponents trying to bring her down, and they just didn't put in the right amount of effort to actually complete the play. And that allows Cedric to break free. I mean, all credit to Cedric for her amazing speed and the strength to get out of there. We talk about the strength of Alona Mar. Well, Cedric, she is significantly smaller than Mar is, height size, weight wise, strength wise, but she's showed every bit of strength that Mar has in breaking out of that tackle. It was really just as amazing a play you'll ever see in sports.
Yeah, and then the whole rugby, not just Team USA, but we've been talking about this. The men's tournament was 3 days, and then the women's tournament was 3 days, and then the game after the US, they played that gold medal match, which New Zealand advanced to, and they played against Canada. And even that game was exciting. Canada had a lead at halftime, and then New Zealand, I had written down, they had outscored teams 169-24 in their first 4 games before the U.S. Gave them a tougher battle. And I will say the U.S. scored late at the very end that made the final score look a little bit closer than it was, even though they did have a good effort. But Canada kept it close, and then it's kind of nice that the U.S. won bronze, and the team that beat them ended up going on to win gold. They lost to the gold medal finalist or the gold medal winner in the semis. And then, who knows what would have happened if the U.S. had played Canada, but just a full slate. Every game, it was so much fun. And it's a shame the rugby's over. We talked about this too, because the two out of the 3 days of the men's tournament were before the opening ceremony. So now here we are on day 4 of the Olympics, and we're finished with rugby. But what a way to go out. It was very, very fun. I think everyone says this. It's like, we got to watch more rugby before the next Olympics. Can't wait 4 years. I have to look for whether it's a rugby sevens league or just the World Cups or World Championships or whatever. But this is such a fun sport. And everyone, I think, has come around and realized that once the Olympics stop by every 4 years. But I think it would be really cool if this sport just grows in the U.S. and more people watch it in between Olympics too.
Yeah, I know there is I don't know if they call it a World Tour or a World Series. There is some kind of, annual competition of national teams that is always, it's all around the world, so the time zones might be inconvenient, but that's nothing new to fans watching the Olympics. And you certainly hope that winning a bronze medal will spur athletes in the U.S. to pursue rugby, because, a lot of the players on that team are converts from other sports. They played soccer or hockey or field hockey or whatever in high school and college, and then they get drawn to rugby because somebody says, hey, you have the kind of athleticism that would work here. There's so many other athletes out there who, maybe they're not excelling at the more traditional sports that are more popular in the U.S., but then they'll be inspired to seek out rugby and find a lane there, and then improve at the next Olympics. Maybe it's silver, maybe it's gold. You never know.
Yeah, it's the same conversation we have about handball every 4 years, where the U.S. doesn't qualify, and everybody looks around and says, well, where are the good athletes, and how do we funnel them into handball? And it just doesn't happen, and you don't see the U.S. playing handball, so people don't think of it. But now that we've got rugby teams that are in the Olympics on both sides, and a women's team getting on the podium, maybe that makes that a little bit easier for them to do some recruiting. And and
there's an existing infrastructure. My high school had a rugby team. People play it across the U.S. Just got to get a little bigger.
Yeah, and I was going to say, years ago, before 2016, it was harder to recruit people because it was like, well, we didn't know it was an Olympic sport. Now it's not only an Olympic sport, but you can say, hey, join our team. We could win a medal. We've medaled before. Be a part of this. And so you'd think, you're right, any amount of success that the team has just makes it easier for them to bring in better athletes and for the program to just keep getting better and better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially, the added incentive of being on home soil in LA in 2028. So that's huge.